Absolutely, we talk about baby brain and the like, but it's interesting, the baby brain doesn't apply to things that you're very diligent and good at, things that you're studious with your work. Man, technology has not been my friend today. I've had an outfit change, as you can see. My phone died, and then I decided I would make a snack, and I managed to pour the snack all over myself, so that was fun. But we're here now. Back to the topic. So with training adaptations, some of the adjustments I've made include, lately I've added some cardio in, not typical running cardio because I don't want that high impact stuff, but seated bike under high resistance to try and keep the muscle mass in my legs nice and dense and strong, and to condition myself for labor. So just allowing myself to go through a bit more endurance based stuff, which has been great. It's a couple of days a week I've added in there. Also downsizing my upper body at the moment, so I've just kind of introduced things like high resistance bike and even swimming on weekends as well in the pool, to take the weight off my legs, so that I don't have that much pressure in my ankles as well. So I've kind of came to that solution myself in a sense. Even my the massage therapist that I work with, he's a bit of a PT as well, human movement specialist. He was talking about potentially incorporating swimming into my regime and bike, or some sort of cardio, so to speak, and I have, and it's been great. Certainly even just to be able to catch my breath as well. So, and yeah, taking rest days every 2 to 3 days, not doing any sort of isometric or isolated work. Sorry, not isometric, not isolated work, not unilateral work. Definitely isometric work with regards to core stuff. So just a few holds, nothing too crazy, and obviously no crunches, nothing that compacts the stomach, not lying on my stomach, not lying on my back. And what else? I guess with my weights, I have not necessarily tapered back the amount of weight I was lifting, but the exercises. For example, I won't do RDLs anymore because it plays around with my hips too much. I still do the same amount of weight on my V squat, it's just not as deep. My pendulum is similar weight as well, just not as deep. My quad extensions, again, same thing, similar weight that I was doing previously, but I don't really have to adjust that one. So I think with exercise and pregnancy, it's more a case of figuring out what you can't do rather than what you can or should be doing, because there are obviously going to be exercises that are more beneficial for things like preventing further abdominal separation, etc. But it's not that drastic. The major difference is what you want to steer clear of. You don't want to be in a position where you're squatting to a point where your belly's being crushed, or the weight that you've got bearing down on your feet, and also on your when you're doing squats. If you are squatting under a bar and it's ridiculously heavy, there is that risk there of you collapsing underneath it. And so just thinking about using more kind of low risk exercises. Great thing with pendulum is that in the base of that squat, if you're nice and wide, you can comfortably sit. And even with a V squat, very similar as well. Whereas with a barbell, there's that higher risk that you can be compromised in the position that you're in. Even things like leg press, change to cable leg press from plate loaded. Weirdly enough, the 45-degree glute extension is really good because your belly can be clear of it, so that's awesome. Abductions, adductions, they're great. Lunges are pretty good, but they're obviously, there's that kind of isolated sides there where you've got left and right being isolated. But again, if you're only doing that, once or twice a week, it's not going to kill you. So. And just a bit longer rest between sets as well, just to make sure that I'm not pushing myself so hard that my central nervous system is taking a hit. So we now have midwife continuity as far as having the same midwife throughout the whole process, which is great. From week 20 onwards, we got accepted into the referral that we got originally. We were on a wait list for, so that's good. They want me to try to progress through natural birth as much as possible, or vaginal birth they say now, not natural, because every birth is natural. They want me to progress through that as much as possible at home, So, until I'm about 5 centimeters dilated, and then have me off to hospital then. So, depends on when I go into labor, all that type of stuff. Whether they induce me, we know those details tend to pan out towards the end of the pregnancy. I don't have a birth plan just yet, but my birth plan is pretty much, try and get as far as I can at home, sit in the bath if I can with Alex. He'll be within 20 minutes always of me, which is good. And closer to the date as well, he'll make sure that he can drop everything to be able to be with me for labor. And yeah, the plan is just to obviously try to progress through that, and get through those contractions, and understand obviously like the time between contractions, all that type of stuff, which we are going through in our birthing classes, and just keeping an eye out for making sure the baby's not distressed and listening to my body, getting into hospital and hopefully going straight from the bath at home to the bath at hospital, so the big birthing bath. If I am obviously past a certain point of dilation, I can't have an epidural, but even then the water births are apparently very good for pain, so I'll aim for that. If it doesn't go that way, we can always go for no epidural, not epidural, no water birth and an epidural if I end up asking for one. Apparently some interesting things happen through birth where women get quite aggressive, and they forget what they've said to people. So I think I'm more worried about that. I'm more worried about how mean I'm going to be to people while I'm giving birth. But probably the most annoying thing about the whole like medical side of things is just the amount of appointments, like constant midwife appointments, checking the baby's heartbeat, checking where the baby is, like nothing's wrong, everything's gone really well, ultrasounds are all going well, she's 2 weeks ahead, as I said previously, with growth. Like, it's such a textbook low risk pregnancy, which is fantastic. But I think it's just, obviously the symptoms I've had, like, I don't think I'm special. I know that lots of women experience these symptoms, but I think it's just, having to go to appointments in the middle of work days has been, if anything, I can't wait till I don't have appointments. But then there's obviously appointments after the baby is born for their vaccinations, their checkups, your checkups, all that type of stuff. So the appointments have been a little bit irritating, but helpful. But some of them I think have been a bit pointless. But we do love our scans. We love seeing her, so that's good. So I've kept a list of everything we've needed for her, for me, and appointments, dated chronological order. I am weird like this. So I've got everything, I've had everything from the start to the finish, all dated in the order of what we're doing them in, all of the events and things that we've got going on, exactly what week we need to do certain things, and it's wild. That's how I've managed to get everything for the nursery, and all the, bits and bobs along the way for myself. I haven't gone ahead of myself and gotten things that, for example, can be purchase, whether it's be after birth or even Alex can pop out and get for me, because again we don't know whether or not it ends up being a vaginal or cesarean. I don't want to waste money on postpartum recovery care, and it might be a different scenario. If I'm having a C-section, I'm obviously not going to need as much of things like cooling types of ice blocks and stuff for vaginal birth, because it's not happening that, if it doesn't happen that way. So there's just lots of things I'm considering, and obviously I've got plenty of support, so I think it's important for people to understand that. But yes, we can be very prepared in every aspect for almost everything possible, but by the same token, what people choose to do and the direction they choose to go in, whether they want to wear big maternity pad underwear or whether they just want to wear period undies and that suits them or whatever, that's their choice. And if they want to make the mistake of doing it and they learn, okay, maybe I do need something bigger for me or whatever, that's totally fine. But I definitely have experienced a lot of people saying things like, make sure you do this and make sure you do that, and it's like that may have been based on their experience. And I've had other people say, look, I didn't need to do that. That wasn't something I need to do. So it can be definitely a money pit. I think sometimes you can spend money on things that you don't end up using, unfortunately, as a result. So weekends I've kept free for baby things. I certainly think that people underestimate, and certainly as well, you should never judge somebody in their career, in their business, or a mother preparing to have a child for the time they take on their days off to prepare for their child. Because I have heard things even in the industry where people say kind of things about other women who've had children, saying stuff like, oh, she's very, she's busy with the baby, or she's focused on her child. And it's like, yes, because that's what a mother does and that's what she should be doing. And if she chooses to do that and take time on weekends and not work on weekends, it's probably because she works during the week, and that's normal, and that's perfectly fine. So I think we need to probably encourage and normalize that more than trying to push women to be, 150% all the time in every single facet, because then there's this insurmountable pressure. So this is where I separate my personal and business life. I will work my 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I'm happy to do that, but then I clock out of everything. I've gotten to a really good practice of it this week. Ending those conversations when I need to end them with clients, and on weekends as well, putting up really, as I said previously, those healthy boundaries with my time on weekends is my time. As much as what clients have things going on weekends that obviously would be relevant to our work, it's just very important to understand that if we're running a business and we decide our work hours, that's our work hours. And I go to posing classes. I have been to one already for the season. I may go to one more before I give birth. It just entirely depends on how I'm feeling. But again, there's no malice to hold against people for making these decisions for themselves, because again, it's about protecting the health of yourself and your baby, and you should hold no apologies for that. So we've also been slowly changing our house decor as well, because we're crazy. So that's been happening on the weekends, just randomly kind of, switching things like our kitchen over, our sheets, our bed sheets, more friggin' flat packs. Poor Alex. He's had an endless supply of flat packs for the last few months, but just changing over from like a black kind of scheme to more whites. And you'll see with the nursery, that's the theme we've gone with, but that will extend out to the house as well. And Alex bought a new car. He's got a brand new Audi. So there you go. I mean, this is not challenges in pregnancy or growth within pregnancy. This is just more a case of shit that's been happening that no one really knows about, because we don't put everything on social media. But he has a brand new, or 2021 Audi. It's black. It's beautiful. A5. I don't like Audis. I've never been a big fan of them. I don't even like BMWs. I'm a bit fussy. But he got a black one, and I don't mind this one. It's pretty cool. Got really lots of dad boot space. He likes to brag about it. His dad boot space. And some personalised plates. Through this process, it's been really hard for Alex because, well, not really, but he has been giving a lot of himself to me. And, we've kind of focused on things for the baby and things for me. And yeah, he's gotten himself a couple things here and there, like he likes his Nike shoes. But there hasn't been a lot for Alex, through this process. So it's been nice to see him treat himself to something that he's wanted, to get a new car, because the other one shit itself, and then he got a work car. So this is just, again, it's his thing. He likes cars. That's, I'm not going to take that away from him. Yes, as long as the car seat fits in there, I'm fine. It's sitting in the garage at the moment, the car seat. We've got to fit that in. Around, again, like 35 weeks, we'll pack our bags. She's so happy in there. There's just no chance I'm going early. We'll pack our bags around 35 weeks, and we'll also put the car seat in the car and get the pram ready and all that type of stuff. And he'll pack his overnight bag. It gets so exciting then. You feel like you're going on this, adventure. And the interesting thing that I'll add is that through this whole process, I haven't had baby brain at all. I still haven't had baby brain. It's not at all a thing. Even prior to being pregnant, I'd have moments where I'd be leaving my phone in changing rooms and dumb shit. That's just life. Everybody does that. But something interesting that happened to me a couple of weeks ago was we were driving back from a date together, and I got pulled over by the police, and we did, and I thought they were profiling Alex. Anyway, turns out they said, my registration has been cancelled, and I thought, no, that can't be right. I've paid my reg. I paid a year of it from January or whatever. Something happened. I would have got a renewal. And anyway, it turns out it was over 90 days expired, which is just ridiculous. I've never in my life not paid my registration for my car. It's not like I was avoiding it. I've never even forgotten it, and I was racking my brain thinking, when did I get a letter? Apparently I'd opted for emails when I updated my driver's license. I got a new one after 8 years. And apparently I opted for emails, and I must have deleted the TMR email. And I was just so embarrassed. I just said to the police officer, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so on point with everything. If you have a look at my calendar, there's dates and times and due dates of bills and knowing what time, and everything is just so to the point. My credit rating is just immaculate. and I don't have a credit card. Like I've always been a person who says don't spend the money if you don't have it. So I've never been late with anything, and I've never missed anything, and I've never not paid my registration, and it wasn't on purpose. I don't know how it happened, and it was the first time, God, in such a long time where I felt silly, and I was thinking to myself, and even so, like the whole way through pregnancy, I've been completely on point, with my work, my career. My clients can vouch for this too. They probably think, how is this woman this sharp through her pregnancy? And the only way I could describe it is I have like a laser focus for getting everything complete. I'm very much a fastidious person. I can't nap unless I've done my tasks for the day, and I still don't nap. But I've had this vision, even the way the nursery has turned out, it's exactly the way that I had imagined it, and I got every single tiny piece, and I searched high and low for it. Everything I do is with this meticulous execution. It's like I'm very particular. And so I don't think my brain could slow down even if I tried. Even in my work, I think a lot of the time I'm thinking outside the box. I think about things that my clients don't. I'm very solutions focused. I come up with ways of solving situations, and my clients will vouch for this as well. They'll just be like, I don't know how she does it, but they'll tell me, I didn't think of that. That's a great idea. This type of stuff. And thinking of things before they happen as well. So I'll often think ahead of time, which is both a blessing and a curse. So this was a bit of a shock. This is like, I know, the one weird moment I've had through pregnancy where I was like, what the fuck? How did that happen? So anyway, we had to get a new roadworthy for the car. And then I, went to the transport department the next day and paid for it. It was all sorted. But yeah, that's probably been my one and only moment where I've gone, ugh. Relationships obviously are really important, like my partnership and time together and intimacy, and something that people don't talk a lot about. And obviously our intimate life is our intimate life, but is sex through pregnancy. Like it's just something that I don't know, no one talks about it. I noticed a lot on the forums when I was first on forums, and I've gotten off them since because I hate pregnancy forums. I know, unpopular opinion, I can't stand them. I also can't stand pregnancy groups online, like Facebook groups. I just don't know. I don't gel with anyone. I guess maybe because of my background in nutrition and fitness. I'm not sure. It's not that I judge people. It's just more that I don't fall into that trap or that path of, I guess, like that negative type of cycle, which I do find a lot of the time in the pregnancy community. And you know what? I don't blame women for feeling that way sometimes. But yeah, I tend to resonate more with women who, obviously acknowledge the struggles and everything, have a bit of a giggle sometimes, or have a cry, and then they just kind of find a way through, and that's my crowd. And even if they're finding it themselves, if they don't necessarily need solutions, but hiccups. It's a fun part of pregnancy. It's great when she gets the hiccups and I get the hiccups at the same time. It is, we're never in unison though. It's like, my belly's going off and I'm going off. But intimacy, on these forums, I found that it was like a lot of women were saying things like, my sex drive is gone, I'm not wanting it anymore, I don't feel sexy. I certainly can resonate with that one, that I don't feel as sexy, because my idea of sexy has had to change. You imagine you've got to flip from being this person who sees sexy as being, I don't know, a certain look, right? Physically and aesthetically, and then you've got to somehow find a bump. You've got to find this somehow sexy, but it's also growing a baby, but it's also meant to be sexy because you're going to have to find yourself sexy at some point to be able to then, be sexually confident. And that was a huge struggle for me because I've always had a flat tummy. So like having a tummy has just never been a thing for me. So that was difficult to embrace and still is. Like I still don't know how to identify with a sexy pregnant belly. It's not, I don't know, it just doesn't click with me. But there are other parts of my body that I find sexy at the moment, and I always will. And my partner, obviously, he's very attracted to me still and obviously tells me and everything like that. And it's very important that he does. I think in pregnancy that we need our partners. I know it sounds bad, but we need our partners to affirm with us and to reassure us, because if we don't have that reassurance, I do believe that it can eat at us almost, so to speak. So he's good with words. He'll tell me many times in a day that I'm beautiful, and he'll kiss me and he'll kiss my belly and he'll rub my belly, but also still acknowledges me as a woman who isn't pregnant too, as meaning like I'm still a woman. I'm not a pregnant woman all the time. I'm still me. It definitely has been difficult to navigate because obviously there's a lot of focus on baby. There's a lot of focus on getting ready for the baby and parenting and everything like that. So the relationship inevitably does change. We have tried to spend as much time together as possible on weekends, and I think that the hardest thing has been me feeling guilty for spending time with Alex on the weekends when I should on days off, and not spending time with my clients. And you know, I've been told by so many people, spend as much time with your partner as possible before the baby comes. So for me, certainly it's been difficult trying to justify, and I love every moment with my partner, but not feel as if I have to be attending to someone else or giving to someone else all the time when I've already done that during the week in my normal, work hours. But it has definitely felt nice to be able to do that, to say to people, no, I'm spending the weekend with my partner. No, I'm not going to posing class. No, I'm actually going to spend time with my partner before the baby arrives, because we get very limited time together as it is. He leaves for work at, I sleep until like 7 or so, some mornings 7:30. He leaves for work at around 8:30, so in the morning he's getting ready, so I barely see him anyway. Or 8 he'll leave, and then he's away all day until like 4:30, and I'm obviously working as well. He comes home around 4:30. We get ready for the gym. We go to the gym. Again, sometimes we get interrupted at the gym, so we might be there until hours we don't want to be there, say 6, 7, 8. We get home, we eat dinner, we go to bed, we do it again the next day. So you imagine we only really get those days off on weekends together. But for the most part, intimacy hasn't been impacted. Like obviously it changes things like what your abilities are, but in essence, we haven't allowed it to stop us. And as I said, on those forums, I was reading all the time women who were just saying, oh, I'm not, or I'm denying my partner or whatever. And it was this, and that's very personal and up to people as to what they choose to do. But we've kept it going, and we intend to do that. So, and I've had lots of support from Alex as well. Like, I think that a partner's support through pregnancy or any sort of massive life change is just so crucial. And I do really feel for women who are single mums. Maybe they fell pregnant under circumstances where, it wasn't planned or whatever it might have been, or even, it hasn't worked out between them and their partner, or there's a multitude of different circumstances that they could have fallen into. Or women with abusive partners or unavailable partners that, I wouldn't even say lucky. I chose Alex for a very good reason. My mother used to say to me, make sure, if there's one thing that I would do differently in life, and I love my dad, my mum and my dad, they don't get along very well, but is to choose the father of your children wisely. So I love my dad, I love my mum. I actually think they're great parents. Obviously, we all have stuff from our childhood that, we carry with us, but I chose Alex for a reason. He's not just incredible to me as his fiance and, the mother of his baby, but I know that he's going to be the best dad. I just know, even from how he has been through this pregnancy. So, like if I want food, a certain type of food, he'll go and get it. He'll order Uber Eats. He'll, and it's usually just steak and veg, something like that. That's, something that isn't cooked or maybe ready to eat. He's been so helpful picking things up, making flat packs. Whenever I've, nested and wanted to get something, has been all for it. It's been really, weirdly enough, like we still haven't had an argument through this whole pregnancy, which you would think that it would test a relationship. And it has, but in a way that's brought us closer together. So that's been a really positive thing. As I mentioned previously, I manage a large client base. I have fantastic client retention, client satisfaction as well, because obviously the retention is there, all the way through my pregnancy. My current client base, I've kept, I think, almost all of my clients. And I might have had a few new sign-ups, but anyone who's finished up has been for their own medical reasons or something like that, but there's not been any sort of, I don't think we're the right fit. which is great. I've had clients with me for 3 years, for example, and they're still with me to this day. So my client base is big, but by the same token, it's people who are very loyal and have been with me for quite some time. And yeah, my pregnancy hasn't impacted them. And I'm sure that if you're a client listening to this, you'd even say yourselves that you wouldn't even know. Wouldn't even know. So obviously, managing shows for the season, with a 4 to 6 week old, is going to be quite challenging, but not impossible. Also, by the way, if you notice, I'm wearing shoes now. This is the third time I've tried to film this vlog today, and this is different lighting. My phone died the first time, so I just started filming again. The second time, my phone died again, and the third time, my partner came home, and I've had an appointment I had to keep with a friend, so I'm here again. But it's okay. I persevere. But yeah, the show's coming up. Obviously, we've got NBA, we've got ICN coming up, and it'll be around when she's about 4 to 6 weeks old, which is obviously isn't ideal to take a newborn to shows, especially for their immune function. So it's going to be one of those situations where I can't commit myself to going to a show, because if I'm breastfeeding as well, it's another complication. I would love to take her. I'd love to bring her, but I'd also want to make sure that I'm thinking about her health and my sanity. Sleeping a newborn baby in a hotel. Oops, she's kicking and moving around at the moment. It's very funny when that happens halfway through doing something. But taking a newborn to shows is, it's doable. Whether it's smart, I don't know. So Alex will likely, worst case scenario, Alex will step in. He's done quite a few shows now. He's well known at the shows. He'll step in and be show dad for at least one of the shows. And then the second show, because we'll do 2 major shows this season, it may be both of us and the bub. It may be just him. It may be just me. It really just depends on our circumstances. Again, with her feeding, that sort of stuff. Whether she's a super easy baby, whether not all of them are, and I don't think any of them are, but how we manage, the early stages of becoming first-time parents. And obviously, we will be there for our clients. So for my clients, technically they're not Alex's clients, but on show day they are. We'll be there for them. We're not going to be absent. It'll just be one or the other. So it is, again, amazing having him on board. Weirdly enough, 5 of my clients have fallen pregnant while coaching with me. So while I have been pregnant, obviously this, you won't know who these people are. In fact, you'll never guess who they are. This is the great thing about confidentiality until they announce. But yeah, so I've got this, massive client base, and I've never had this many women. I may have had 1 or 2 women fall pregnant, while coaching with me, which is great. And I actually thought about it. I thought, wow, my women are healthy enough to fall pregnant. This is awesome. So 4 of them they've stayed on for coaching. 1 finished up and will be back. Was just pausing just to try and get through that first trimester. So it's been really rewarding. It's been really nice to be able to provide that nutritional guidance, certainly because I've now got this really quite extensive knowledge of what's required for nutrition for pregnancy, which is amazing. I love that I've just gone ahead and learned all of this. And also endocrine function as well, understanding all sorts of things like that. But the most important part of it is that I'm working in with their allied health professionals, their medical professionals, their specialists, their doctors, their GPs, and their recommendations from them. So we kind of bounce off each other in figuring out what's the best case scenario. And to be completely honest, I don't have them tracking macros. There's a lot of flexible eating, but also things like 3-day diary reports and just kind of almost fine-tuning their diet to a point where it is optimal for baby's health and for mum's health, in getting that micronutrient profile in, and without restriction, basically, and make sure there's enough calories and all of the above, and not in excess of the nasty stuff that might make them feel even worse, make them feel even more tired. So it's been great watching them go through the processes in the early stages and optimizing their health and optimizing their nutrition and even things like training as well, adapting their training and figuring out what's working really well for them. And I agreeably as well with this whole situation. It's a mutual agreement. So it's, it's not just like, for example, they've fallen pregnant. I've said, hey, you should stay on. It's just happened. And they said, hey, I'd really like to stay with you, because you're going through this, you've been through this yourself. I've never been a big believer in, because you've gone through something yourself, you can help someone in that facet. But what I do is I make sure I stick to my role. So that's nutrition and training, my specifics. And then obviously everything outside of that, things like their bloods and everything like that, that's all done like their midwifery care. I'm not going to act like I'm some sort of expert on birthing or pregnancy, but certainly that I do cover, and I'm happy to cover what I'm absolutely very sure of with regards to human movement and nutrition practices. So yeah, it's been a process whereby the clients have been all for staying on board and have wanted to. Managing full-time study, as I mentioned previously, has been probably the last thing I needed on my plate was the rest of the study, but also knowing that weirdly, and again, very serendipitous, but I'm finishing up my PG dip the month that I'm due to give birth. So literally on point, the same month, even to the week. My last exams are due, so it's very interesting that I won't get much of a break. Let's just say that from pregnancy, study, and then going straight into motherhood. It's life is just so hectic. There's no sort of downtime. And doing well, mind you, as I said, with the studies, the biochem, the amount of depth involved, and admittedly, there are some days it's not even a baby brain thing. We're probably just more a case of I'm kind of sick of study. I think we all get there. If anyone can relate, especially to master's level study, and that's what it is. It's literally a master's level without dissertation. It can almost drain you, just as much as anything else does. Sitting down for a full day of study. So that's what I've got planned for tomorrow. Is my middle of the week study day. Fully booked fierce. So obviously that was a huge thing that was a massive accomplishment for myself, especially going through pregnancy and then thinking to myself, people are going to perceive me differently and they're going to, treat me differently. And there was a little bit of that, but it was amazing the feedback, I guess, from like 15 signups for something that, maxes out at 10, and I had to extend another 5 places, and I'm glad I did. To book out is incredible. Now taking intakes for the 4th of March is the next intake. Yes, I am going to start another fierce journey when I'm just before I'm due to give birth. But the great thing is, obviously, once their program is done and they're kind of, they're on track, it's almost a set and forget situation. Not necessarily because I am talking to them quite a bit in the group chats and we message quite a lot, my fierce girls, but more so in case that we don't do check-ins. So it's not like, I'm going to have to add those clients to my check-in books. So it is all self-paced and self-check-in style. But again, those Q&As, the group chat, I am very involved in that aspect. So it's been nice. This fierce journey has been fantastic. The full 15 that we've had, they've been so interactive in the group chat. The girls are just killing it, There's workouts happening all over the place. People are discovering things about their food choices, how to track, optimal carbs, protein, fat, macro ratios, calorie deficits, calorie surplus, calorie maintenance, like understanding energy balance. So it's really beautiful to be able to pass on this knowledge to clients, and knowing that they can then obviously after fierce either, come on for ongoing coaching, do another fierce journey, or go off and do their own thing. And I'm happy with either of those. Or, the thing I don't like is seeing people start something, not finish it, or even so give up on it and not put a significant amount of effort into it, because it does get easier over time in this process. So, as I mentioned, I don't know whether I said this earlier, but I've only got 3 spaces available for one-on-one coaching at the moment. There is one that I'm filling next week, and the other 2 I'm not really going to push to fill them because, again, for me, it's not a high priority to be at my full capacity. If I'm sitting just under, and that's for one-on-one spaces only, and again, because fierce is so full, my drive to fill those two spaces is next to none. But if I do get people who are in desperation or have really wanted to work with me for a while, and they want, to coach, then they can come to me for sure. Keeping healthy boundaries. So that's been a really important aspect of this journey, is that I believe that prior to pregnancy and prior to motherhood, well, potentially, obviously it's not there yet, but I was definitely a pushover with my time, and I've gotten really good at this as time has gone on. But the last couple of weeks, I've even started to, I guess, put up those healthy boundaries with time. Really know when my cutoff is for working, when I'm not working, when I am working, and knowing when a conversation is done and I've finished it with a client, if they're dragging it out a little bit and everything like that, and it kind of gets to a point where I'm not getting on with my day and actually going and doing things I need to do, like train, and it does happen quite frequently. So that's been a big learning curve for me, is it's not about being pregnant and taking a step back and, take it easy, all this type of stuff, but it's more a case of, prior to falling pregnant, I wasn't really doing that. I wasn't looking after myself enough. I wasn't prioritizing my training and nutrition as much as I should have been. And I was give to other people all the time. And I had this really strong sense of guilt if I wasn't giving, that I wasn't, being the best coach I could be. And what's felt like relief almost is getting into a practice of not, unapologetically saying, "Oh, I'm going to take my day off. Thank you. I'll reply to you on Monday." And putting up those healthy boundaries, which is, being welcomed as well. Like, that's the other thing too. As coaches, we fear telling people, "Hey, not right now, but I can later." And I think women as well, especially because we do have that maternal side of us, which wants to provide and be available all the time. But we get to choose our availability. You must always remember that your availability is your availability. You are not a 24-hour hotline, and you need to decide that and implement that. Sticking to our routine has definitely helped through pregnancy. So, what has changed? Not a lot. We still train. We have to train a bit earlier. We go to bed a bit earlier. Doing house-related things on the weekend and like life admin. I've still got a list a mile long of other stuff I've got to do as well, like all sorts of, things that arise. And so, just like anything, really putting aside the time to do that in the times when you should, take care of life stuff on weekends and work during the week, and if that's the decided hours, and sticking to that structure and training, at the time you're meant to train, and spending the time and the amount of time training, and not, dilly-dallying and getting stuck talking and all that type of stuff. So, and it's something that you have to check yourself with all the time. You have to constantly check yourself with your routine. If it does become something that is, it becomes too flexible, then you can start to get into bad habits with it, and again, you end up then compromising your own standards of health, well-being, and time management is a huge part of it. If you're not getting shit done and you don't have time, it's not that you don't have time, it's your time management. Being prepared for literally anything, I think, is a big, huge thing that I've noticed through pregnancy and obviously postpartum, is that I've had a lot of people say things like, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, and what if this happens? And, but if this happens, you'll have to do this. And the way that my mind works is that, yes, one of many things could happen in many different scenarios. And one thing that my partner and I are really good at is, when we get hit with something, we digest the information and we basically say, where do we go from here? What's the next steps? Instead of flailing and thinking, fuck, we're the only person people have experienced this before, we actually really like going, yep, this is individual to this situation. How do we tackle it together? What's the best way forward from here? So I'm definitely a person going into this whole situation, instead of putting pressure on myself for things to go a certain way or be a certain way with my baby. I haven't met her yet, and I'm sure she will come with all of her own little intricacies and personality traits and things that she likes and doesn't like, and that is absolutely okay, but I can't be prepared for all of it. So I like the saying, with motherhood and pregnancy, be prepared for literally anything, and don't be anxious about the worst things happening, but more so a case of, don't set yourself up for these very particular circumstances to be exactly the way that you want them to be. And of course, this nursery is something I could control, right? So sure, it's lovely, it's beautiful, it's everything I would have envisioned, but it gave me something to focus on that I could control, that amongst all of the random shit happening, that I couldn't. And it's actually kept me sane. Like, being able to work on this project, which is now fully come together, it kept me sane. So that's the only reason why I really did it. It's not even because it had to be this way, or, if it wasn't, I'd have a breakdown or anything like that. It's just because it was something that was constant and allowed me to think about the baby and do things for the baby, but not necessarily be anxious about what the outcome was going to be. So I'm no longer anxious because, there's something I could contribute, which none of this will have much to do at all with what will happen, through her childhood and everything like that, and who she ends up being as a person. But it is a representation of, not chaos, basically the opposite of chaos. And I'm sure that there will be chaotic moments, but I'm definitely that type of person with chaos, is that I always identify chaos as, not that it needs to be organised, restructured or anything like that, but more so, where is this coming from? What's the source of this? Is there any way that we can reduce this or bring it to a point where it's less chaotic? Reinvesting in the company is something that's actually happening amongst all of this as well. So practically as soon as my uni finishes, but I've got a bit of an overlap at the moment, but I'm actually spending the next 2 months doing some business restructuring for good reason. My life is changing. Nothing terrible is happening. Whenever I say I'm changing the business, people will panic. It's nothing bad's happening. Just looking at different ways of running the business, being very, very particular with my time, and certainly where I put my time and resources, because they are finite. And looking at what that looks like postpartum as well. So that's been huge. Basically, and reinvesting money into my business to work on having it running like, it's already smooth sailing as it is. It's already running like a very, how would I put it, well-oiled machine. But in business, there's always improvements to be made. There's always structural and process requirements and things like that, whereby you might look at your business and go, this is run really effectively. The way that this is going is great. And there might be something in there that you can fine tune. And so that's what we're looking at doing. So I've literally spent money on this next aspect, and I do believe anyone in business should do that. Always put money back into your company or your business. And to finish up, obviously, a couple of things I've really learned to do through this process, and has been so empowering, but drowning out negative voices, people who are nothing but negative. And it's actually, weirdly enough, most people are great, but there are some people in my close vicinity as well that have been rather negative, or, they say things that off the cuff that just are very unnecessary, wait for the sleep deprivation and wait for this. And I think that's an awful thing to say to a first-time parent, because of course we know there will be difficult times. There will be times when we're changing nappies at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're aware of that. We're not there yet. And to anticipate and to be anxious about that in a time where your body is trying to be calm and relaxed, it's not living in fairyland, but we're not stupid. We're fully aware of what we've got ourselves into, and people have told us plenty of times all the negative things about parenting. So we don't need to hear any more of it, because people have filled our heads with it. I think the best thing you can say to first-time parents is tell them the good things. Tell them what to look forward to, because what you're doing is you're literally creating anxiety and depression before it was even there. And they're in life with anything, whether it's starting a family, having a child, getting a puppy was a great example. Lots of different things, new careers, new businesses. There will be frustrating points. There'll be points where you've had it, right? There will be. But there's always, with anything you want to do in life, there has to be a reason why you're doing it. There has to be some sort of positive to that, right? There's an outcome that you're looking for there. So something that I've really benefited from is not drowning out the negative voices and saying, look, bad things aren't going to happen and it's not going to be hard. But I just focus less on that. I try to mentally focus less on the shit parts of pregnancy. I've listed all of them off. And if you listen to this podcast, you go, fuck, didn't realize Mariah all this was happening. Because it's such a personal thing that for it to happen, number one, but I don't focus on it. Number two, I don't focus on it. It's a part of it, but I don't focus on it. And the same would go with having a baby and parenthood. It's a part of it, but I'm not going to focus on it. It's not going to be something that I magnify or that, it's just a part of the process. Advice from random strangers, we've all been there. Honestly, if I can please ask anybody, please don't give me any more advice. I'm done. We've got so many tips and pointers. It's very nice. We do appreciate it. It's really lovely. Don't ever approach new parents thinking, if I just tell them this thing, it might help them a little bit more. And you're probably going to want to bet we've probably heard it before. Or the great thing too is sometimes we don't need advice. We need support. We need people to go to ask how we are, to check in on us, to check in on mental health. If you think about it in life, if you were struggling with a situation, but you probably knew the logical answer or you could find it, honestly, there's parenting books, there's Google, there's medical professionals, there's your very close friends that have had babies before that you can reach out to and go, hey, this is happening, I'm not sure what this is about, I can't get a hold of my GP. But in advance, I do believe that we don't need advice, not as much as what people are giving it to us. We need support, we need love, we need reassurance. We need reassurance that we can do this, the self-belief type of stuff. And I think that there's not enough of that. There is just not enough of, hey, you've got this, you guys are awesome, you're a power couple, you're going to smash it, Yeah, sure, there'll be days that it'll be rough, but you will come out the other side. Because that, weirdly enough, when you believe in people, they believe in themselves. And it's amazing what people can accomplish. I see this with my own clients as well. I spend less time going, you're doing this wrong, and I try to kind of step more into a space of, I know you can do this, no more self-doubt, let's go. Experiencing shopping, I was going to finish on a few points. I was talking about this before, but experiencing shopping for clothes recently was interesting. And learning how to dress for a bump and everything, and just acknowledging and accepting that some things are just not going to fit because there is a stomach in the way, a baby in the way. I walked into a Ralph Lauren shop over the weekend with my partner. We were looking for outfits, new clothes. He was looking for some work shirts and some baby shower outfits and stuff, and maternity shoot outfits, all that jazz. And we walked into the shop and the young fella came up to me in Ralph Lauren and said, oh, can I help you? And what are you looking for? And I said, oh, do you have anything, either a maternity range or anything for pregnant women? And his response was, no, we don't have anything in those sizes. In those sizes. And you know what? I've never been a Karen. I really have not been a Karen. I swear to God, pregnancy has turned me somewhat into a Karen. But I just don't have a tether for people anymore. But what I said to him was, don't you mean you don't have that style or a range for maternity? You don't have maternity styles? And he was, very flustered. And I said, I'll give you an example. That size there, the size 14, 16, loose fit, looks beautiful garment, that would fit me. Okay, so you do have the size that would fit me. You do have those sizes. But talking about sizes in maternity is as logical as... honestly, it's not logical. Your underwear don't fit properly because you've got a stomach that takes up room, and you know what I mean. So I think certainly with shopping for clothes while pregnant, yes, there's maternity ranges, and I think it's just very important to acknowledge the way that you speak to people the language that you use, because it can be perceived as incredibly offensive, and it's not. I didn't, if it was anyone else, I'm sure that someone would have run out of the shop crying, and I probably should have, but it didn't hurt that much. But it more felt unfair, and it felt a little bit like, I felt like saying to him, usually I'm a size whatever, but I'm not that size at the moment because there's a fucking child growing inside me, and that's going to throw my size off completely. And I just wish that the language was different. I wish it was, we don't have the styles for maternity. Sorry. And maybe the feedback could have been, we should look into that, a highly reputable, high quality brand. Why don't they have maternity styles? Or styles that are suitable for maternity. And I did find that there was a few things in the shop that, I probably could have made work. But it was just interesting that was the response. No, we don't have the sizes available. It was a lie. It was just, the wording was horrific. So I actually retorted, and I said to him, well, because you can't help me, go down the back and help my partner. He's looking for shirts. Go on. Like, I wasn't rude, but it was more of a case of, what, I give up. Go. Like, go be useful. And finally, to finish up the final 2 points, 2 things I really focused on doing this entire journey is surrounding myself with new friends and connections, people with babies. More recently, which has been really nice. I was so scared of doing it. Not people that I don't get along with and don't align with, not jumping into forums with people that give me the heebie-jeebies, really being very selective with the people I spend time with. But forging those new friendships and connections with other mums that I click with, not just any mums that I get along with and that I know they're on the same page as me, and we have very similar, not the same values, but just like we gel, realizing who my true friends are as well. Like, I've got still many friends who've not got kids, and I don't act any differently towards them, and I never will. I'm not going to act as if, you wouldn't know what my life is like because you don't have children, because that's just such a patronizing thing to say to somebody. So I've still got, most of my girlfriends don't have kids, and that's, I'm chill with that. Like, this, our little girl is just going to have a ton of aunties and uncles, which is awesome. And connecting with family where possible, and my partner where possible, because I've really understood the value of this. It's not even relying on people for stuff, nothing like that, but more so getting back to understanding that my feelings matter, my emotions matter, my, feeling loved and nurtured matters. And I wasn't doing that, at all, not even for the first part of the pregnancy, but I was so focused on everyone else, focused on the baby and my clients and everything else, that I actually, I got to a point where I realized that I didn't just need people to do things for me, and it wasn't that. We've done this whole nursery, Alex and I, by ourselves, the baby shower, everything was organized. I've only just started reaching out to some friends to help me out a little bit here and there with it. But what I realized was that I needed love, and I needed support, reassurance, and to have these safe spaces created for me by people who are in my circle and who are not my clients, which has been important for me to understand that difference. So that's about it for me, though. It's a very long vlog and podcast, probably split into 2, I suppose. Thanks for listening and tuning in. I'm sorry if it bored the living daylight out of you, but a little bit of insight into first-time mum life, certainly how a entrepreneurial fitness and nutrition coach operates in this facet and area, and how you can have the hybrid of those, and even become and be a great partner, a great friend. You can still thrive in every facet of your life. Bringing a child into your life is a change and adjustment, but it doesn't set you back. And that's the narrative and the moral of the story. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Looking forward to doing another one for you soon. Bye-bye.